Hey everybody, welcome to Live at the Hive episode 201. I am your host,
Dan Nadelko.
And I'm Stacey DeSantis.
And I'm Yagna Koradia.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to episode 201. Suffering from the hangover from our massive celebrations last week.
Oh, yeah.
For episode 200. This week on Live at the Hive Digital Marketing from the Trenches, we will be talking about why you need to think about content distribution and a whole bunch of other things when you're creating content for your website, specifically on your blog. And so Yagna has joined us, and obviously Stacey, content marketing diva. Pippa's saying happy Friday, bees. Welcome, Pippa. We'll let everybody just kind of flow in here a little bit. Before that, we're going to get to our regularly scheduled program of what's new. So let me just cue that all up. How are you guys both doing?
Oh, I'm great. I'm sorry that I missed last week's episode. I was on vacation. So,
Did you not join us? I thought you joined in a little bit.
I was on the 401, stuck in bumper to bumper traffic.
Of
course, being, the law-abiding citizen I am, I was not watching and driving.
Excellent. That is what we like to hear. Absolutely. All right, so let's just dive into it here. And first up on what's new this week, we've got Yagna. Go ahead, over to you, Yagna. Analysis, TikTok soars and global social media users. Oh, wait, no, not that one. It was this one.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think you gave her a mild heart attack there. But
yeah, you did. Okay, so this article basically talks about how TikTok partnered up with Nielsen to get more insights on how TikTok makes user feel and what truly differentiates the app from the competitors. So Nielsen conducted interviews with over 8,000 TikTok users from around the world to get their thoughts on various aspects of the in-app experience, including the perceptions of TikTok content and ads. And as a result, an average of 53% of TikTok users say they trust others to be their real selves on TikTok. Like the videos that we see, they feel that they are the real person, actually. Like this is how their personality will be. And an average of 31% of TikTok users include phrases like "they lift my spirits up" as one of the top 3 reasons why they are returning to TikTok platform again and again. And lastly, one of the interesting fact was 59% of TikTok users feel a sense of community when they are on TikTok, while 77% of TikTok users say that it is a place where people can express themselves openly and be whatever they want, and they can express their personality.
Yeah, I think one of the things about TikTok that, obviously it's a little bit self-serving. They probably, some of these key findings are in their own best interest. But I think one of the things with the growth of TikTok that we've seen is that people do have this affinity for their communities on TikTok, probably very close to YouTube, and definitely more than that, I think, of Instagram.
Definitely. I think that because since they again partnered up with a brand, I think it is more of self-insight kind of a thing.
Stacey, you do a lot of TikTok work. Any thoughts on that?
I do. Yeah, I just, what I really love about this is TikTok is always kind of, going to the beat of their own drum, so to speak, because unlike Instagram and Facebook, where we talk a lot about the algorithms and just getting the content out there, TikTok seems to be really focused in on authenticity and really wanting to truly understand how people feel when they use the app, which is kind of a different approach when you think about it. I don't really think Facebook worries too much about how people feel when using the app. They just worry about making those connections and being a source of information. So it's kind of a different spin on things.
Yeah, you could make the argument that Facebook does know how people feel, and it's probably not that great. But, you know, that's
Fair enough.
just some of the recent news from the other week with the report that was leaked that, well, Instagram and Facebook, especially among young women, increased their sense of anxiety and stress and all sorts of other stuff. So,
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of trends on TikTok that you see where there are little video clips where girls are saying social media is not real, and then they show their filtered picture versus their unfiltered picture, and they're kind of debunking that negativity spin that we're hearing more and more about on Instagram, for instance. So yeah, I think it's self-serving, but it's kind of refreshing at the same time to see how they're approaching growing and developing the app itself. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the other things too, and that'll take us into our next article that I guess, I'm not sure, were you doing this one? TikTok soars and global media users hit 4.5 billion.
I can definitely do that.
Can talk a little bit to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So TikTok, as we were just talking about, is officially a monster. It's got crazy growth rates. They've increased by more than 400 million in the past year alone, which is crazy. This article is really great because it goes into depth, just not about TikTok, but also global growth rates for digital channels across the world. And one of the interesting metrics I found in this article was that according to Hootsuite, 57.6% of us globally are on social. Kind of neat.
Yeah. There's the saying that social media is nothing more than the current state of the internet. I mean, that's what it primarily is, regardless of what it is that you're doing. Staggeringly high numbers there. 4.88 billion is 62% of the world's population. So, should you believe all of that? Even if that's off by 10%, that's still a huge number of people.
Yeah. It's crazy, and I know, speaking from my own personal social media use, I would rather watch TikTok than watch TV. And I'm a Gen Xer, so I was never really big into the whole YouTube piece, which I'm kind of behind the times there because my daughter is really into that. And you've mentioned your kids as well, Dan, are really into it as well. But I love the way that TikTok has just rolled itself out. It's very user friendly and it's very addicting. You get addicted to it.
Yeah, and it does follow the typical churn path of standard social media network. I mean, Facebook used to be like this, Instagram was like this, Twitter was like this with massive organic growth, and we'll see where TikTok goes with it for sure. But definitely, it can't be argued that their growth is absolutely astonishing. If you're not, am I the only one hearing my own echo a little bit? I'm getting a little bit of an echo on that.
You sound great from my perspective. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then that's just me. Perfect. Okay. But no, sorry, just to get back to it is, from a business and marketing perspective, if you're trying to look at, one, just the growth of social, to argue, what you should be doing with your business or with your personal brand, or if you're a creator. Obviously, creators have embraced social like nobody else, but I think businesses still have a long way to go to kind of getting there, although you do see, especially up-and-coming brands, really jumping on that bus.
For sure. And I think it's key for businesses to understand that it just doesn't make sense to just be on social. You have to understand how it makes sense for your brand. So just don't jump on the bandwagon because everybody else is doing it. Make sure that you understand how those different social media channels work and what's going to work best for your brand, because just to be there isn't enough anymore. You need to actually be creating engaging content that makes sense. And that's my content manager diva hat on. But
There you go. There you go. Just jumping back, Courtney, you've probably jumped a little bit ahead asking about the Facebook rebrand. We will be talking about that, so it's actually probably a pretty good segue. So Courtney's asking, what do y'all think about the rumored Facebook rebrand? I think they're trying to get people to forget how they feel about Facebook. So let's talk a little bit about that one. I'll just share that up. So Facebook is planning to rebrand the company with a new name. I somehow, details are very light on this right at the moment. I think even within Facebook, Very few people know about this. Very few people, including senior management, know what the changes are going to be. And obviously with Frances Haugen a couple weeks ago jumping into the spilling of the tea, as it were, inside of Facebook and leaking all of the documents, they are really not too keen on transitioning or telling the internal teams what this rebrand is going to look like. So one of the things that I do know about this absolutely is that Facebook wants to perceive itself as a lot more than just a social series of social networks, because eventually that's going to die off for them. In the exact same way that Google rebranded actually with Alphabet. Right? They've got self-driving cars and flying cars and there's all sorts of stuff that Google or Alphabet is working on through their subsidiaries. Facebook's looking to do a very same thing. They're really focused on the metaverse. We'll see how that pans out, if that's going to be another Google Glass style thing, or if they're really going to double down. A lot of people do agree that the metaverse or some form thereof is kind of the future. Again, TBD, who knows? My feeling on this, just looking at everything, is it's going to be very similar to what, and it's in here too, and it was in a series of other articles this week. Yeah. It's going to be a lot less of, I don't think they're going to change Facebook's name of the product. I think Facebook will become a product beneath a rebranded parent company that's going to split everything up in a little bit more of a individual way, where they share all sorts of resources. So you could look at it that way, and I think I highly doubt that, you're not going to see that blue F logo and the Instagram logo the way that they are. I think it's just going to reorganize in the same way that Google did Alphabet.
100%, and I think it'll be really interesting. They're talking, or the buzz is that during the Connect conference on October 28th is when Zuckerberg is going to announce potentially some kind of name change. But yeah, they do talk about that, how Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram will all just become divisions of said new company name, and that Zuckerberg's really focused on not just being a social company, but being a metaverse company, whatever that means. So that's interesting.
Well, like I said about the metaverse. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Yagna. I saw you were about to say something there.
Yeah, so I was about to answer Stacey's question, like the metaverse, the term, it was actually described by a sci-fi novelist, and it's actually a term to describe a virtual world where like people try to escape, and that is why Facebook is trying to become a world in itself, like allowing people to escape from the real world. And obviously the answers are still not there, it is not provided properly, but this was the basic reason of why they called it metaverse.
Yeah, well, and look, if you're looking for what the metaverse is going to mean, so a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, Facebook used the Oculus to have these virtual meetings and board meetings, and I can't remember who, someone from The View or someone from CBS, I can't remember, some anchor was on there with Mark Zuckerberg, and it looked a little bit like a Nintendo game, but Fortnite is a metaverse currently, where there's just an entire world around it. Second Life as a game is a metaverse, and this is just kind of the next step in that evolution for sure. So
I'm kind of excited for it.
Yeah. And I think it was Neil Gaiman. I can't remember if it was Neil Gaiman or which writer that coined metaverse. But yes, it was sci-fi writer for sure. Ready Player One. Ready Player One. If you saw that movie, that's the metaverse. Or The Matrix, right? Dun, dun,
what color pill would you take, Dan?
I take the red. I take the red pill.
Yeah,
I just stay and hang out.
I'm like, hi.
I don't mind living. If I don't know the difference, then what's the difference, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So Courtney's saying it's a good comparison with Alphabet. Facebook was probably meant to be the flagship brand, not the mothership. Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, there's also just one other point on this before we talk a little bit about Pinterest, is simply the fact that it's from a monopolistic standpoint, the way that they're looking at, this is one big company and Facebook Inc. owns Instagram and WhatsApp and everything. Then they're going to say, no, well, actually, right? It's going to be, I don't get this joke, but Brandon's saying, can't wait for their new name, Head Novel. The parent company is going to have all these subsidiaries within it, which makes it a little bit more complex. Not that the government couldn't come and smash it into a million pieces if they wanted to, I suppose. So
Only time will tell.
only time will tell. This is the Wild West, folks, and this is why we cover all this stuff for sure. And if you are watching on Twitch right now, thanks for joining. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, all of those things on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Twitch as well. So Pinterest has got some big news coming. So they're creating a more, shocker, TikTok like with a watch tab. So Hillary's, again, Pinterest is the best. There are some I don't know what they call you guys, Pinteresties. I'm not sure. Pinterest does have a pretty decent user base. They're kind of like the sleeping giant of social. They don't really get involved in a lot of controversy like a lot of the other networks do. They also have a slower, steadier growth curve. Does make sense. I think we covered this a couple weeks ago when it was first announced.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they do have a decent watch tab. Pinners, yeah.
You know
Pinners-
what's interesting about
Pinners will
this
do it a
article
lot.
too is they
sure.
really touch on the fact that Pinterest is tired for being known as a shopping inspo app. They want to be known as a creator, like a home for creators, which is kind of interesting. So that's why I think they're coming out with a lot of these new features. They're doing like a lot of the same, like, interfaces as TikTok with the vertical videos. They're going to invest in $20 million in a creator rewards program. So they're really going, and then they're even coming out with like a video feature called Takes. So you have the ability to respond to other videos on Pinterest with a take. So I guess that's kind of like a stitch almost.
I think that's exactly a stitch.
Yeah.
Brandon is saying Pinsters is kind of catchy. Yep. That's very Pinteresting theories on the names. One of the things with Pinterest that's interesting, having used it for many, many years, and I do have several boards and a relatively-ish active account, Pinterest has always kind of been known for resharing content from other sources as opposed to a place to originate your content. Where people will say, well, yeah, you can pin your video. And most recently, one of the big things has been take your TikTok videos and pin them to Pinterest. I'm sure Pinterest was thrilled to have TikTok's branding all over their feeds and streams and boards, which is also something that happens on Instagram as well. So this is a big jump on Pinterest side, in my opinion, to actually get into the creator economy instead of, hey, this is where you have your wedding boards and your DIYs and all the content is effectively being aggregated from other sources, as opposed to originating the content on Pinterest and then being shared out.
Right. Like they don't want to be a dumping ground. They want to actually have people within the platform itself using the app and then creating content specifically for Pinterest themselves, which just makes sense business-wise as well. So
yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot to see there, and a $20 million creator fund. We did talk about this last week. The creator funds are interesting. I still think that the creator funds are a bit of a cop-out on actual rev share in advertising because 20 million probably does not touch what, say, 45 to 50% of ad revenue, which is what YouTube gives up, which is a sustainable ecosystem for creators. But it's a start, right? It's a start. And Pinterest is probably right now one of the smallest of all of the social networks as it is, except for this final big piece of what's new this week. And look, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world of digital marketing.
there is, I think, the team pulled about 20 articles this week alone, and there's even more that we could have covered. So
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, totally. Courtney's saying, they're taking what they want from every other platform. I mean, yeah, they all do. And Hillary is saying, yeah, Pinterest is the McDonald's of social media, trying to compete with every other platform at the same time. Well, the interesting news is that there is a strong rumor that PayPal is going to buy Pinterest, which actually does make a ton of sense if you think about the fact that PayPal also owns eBay, that it owns a whole bunch of stuff. And it also gives a direct line into somewhat of a competitor all of a sudden to some of the bigger other players in the space. It's looking like a $50 billion or $45 billion. I heard 50 earlier in the week, but 45 billion. So, a couple of bucks.
Oh yeah, I'll spend that this weekend grocery shopping. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of like, this will be PayPal's biggest ever acquisition. And don't forget, one of the biggest acquisitions happened earlier this year when Salesforce bought Slack for $27 billion. This is making it look,
Like chump change.
Like that's chump change. And, I think one of the things is definitely, Pinterest is public. It'll be an interesting amalgamation. Pinterest then becomes PayPal's primary social network. You integrate that with PayPal, with eBay, starting to look like a bit of a conglomerate there all at the same time. So like you said, lots happening. We didn't even cover a fraction of this week's news. I think that was some of the most important stuff that we had seen.
Definitely.
All right, so let me just find my tabs here if I still have them all. Probably not. Of course I don't. So talk amongst yourselves for 1 second.
Always
I just
happens.
pull this up. Oh, I know.
No, like it happens to me too. Like I'll go to look at something. I'm like, which tab is it on? Where did it go?
Yeah. It's all good. We're here. All right, so this week on What's Working, what we want to talk about, and this is a good one. I like this one because although, this seems like a lot of things. This seems like, oh, I've read this before. I read a Neil Patel article, blah, 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 blah. This is one of the often most written about and most vaguely discussed topics. And there's some people that get into it a little bit more, but it's one of those topics that is really one of the most powerful tools that really is accessible to any brand of any size, whether you just are a one person startup, with a Wix site and you're looking to start to generate growth. Blogging and content creation and how you do that is one of the main ways that you're able to make that happen. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to look at creating a systematic approach to content creation. We're going to talk about formatting. We're going to talk about how to structure your content properly, how to optimize it for search. Someone constructing in the background over there?
Not over here.
I'm hearing something then. That's okay. It's not happening from here. It's all good. It's all good. And we're going to talk about not only how to create it, how to structure it, what kind of elements you should have in there, but how to market it, how to distribute it, how to share it, to get that content really working for you, and how to monitor and optimize as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it in 11 minutes, right?
Yeah, or 15. We'll get there.
We're
That's all.
diving in.
We're diving right in. So starting off, one of the first things is you want to understand your niche and blog style. So Yagna, I'll kick this one over to you to kind of talk about how you do that.
Okay, sure. So, 90% of your initial blogging success comes down to choosing the right niche, then writing about the right topics within that niche, which is why it is important that you choose a correct niche. For example, with anything related to travel, sports, music, fashion, food. So, first things first, like whenever you select a niche, for example, let's say you are selecting about food. So, you should be clear about what you want to teach. Are you going to give like a guidance for how to cook food, or are you going to give different kind of recipes? So there should be some kind of leverage that you hold on audiences, and you should be able to provide value. And there should be also a desired blog style. Like if you're going to give out recipes, is it going to be just like these are the things that you need, or if you're going to give step by step guidance, like no, cook this for 15 minutes, then like do this. So it depends, but it should be clear that you are choosing a blog style that makes sense.
I think just to add to that, I think one of the things is to really understanding. We do talk a lot about this, but the smaller you are, the narrower your niche, the more successful you're going to be. So always understanding, it's a big world out there. We just talked about 4.8 billion social media users, let alone the number of blogs and the amount of content. I think the other important thing, defining and understanding your audience regardless of the size. Okay, so it's got to be relevant to your business or to your goals or what you're trying to achieve. Do not try to go head to head with very broad topics, right? Be as useful as possible and go narrow and deep on that content. There's kind of more to it as you delve into it, but we're going to talk a little bit about how you research that as well. So that's kind of step one, laying out those niches and really understanding that you're trying to talk to one individual who's solving a problem, as opposed to writing something generic that you might find on, say, a Wikipedia style, right?
You can't be everything to everyone. You have to understand where you lie in that niche.
Totally. All right. So now we're going to talk about headlines a little bit. So the first part of crafting your content is going to be exactly that. The headline is something that I think really good bloggers understand, that headlines are incredibly important. So just as an example, some larger brands that talk about headline creation, and I will let Yagna and Stacy jump in on this after I get my point in, is simply that what I see a lot of, or have seen a lot of over the past 19 years, is that people are really trying to, they just kick out a headline like very, very quickly, right? Without really much thought or much research. But your headline has a specific format, and the specific format that you've got is in fact is going through several iterations. So it was BuzzFeed. They write over 24 different headlines and test them internally before ever coming to one decision. Seems like a stupid little thing, but it's in fact the heavy lead, because in search, your title is obviously front loaded unless Google rewrites it. On your site, it's going to determine whether or not people stick around and if it follows up with it as well. So Stacy, any additional thoughts on that right at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's important too that the term clickbait has become very trendy. So a lot of people think, oh, I'll just write a juicy headline. And I can't tell you how frustrating that is for a user if you look at it from their perspective, where they think, oh, this is going to give me the information I need. And it's nowhere near the quality of content that I'm looking for. It doesn't give me any valuable information. I've just been sucked into an article because it has like a clickbait or trendy headline that someone thought, oh, this will get me a lot of play, but there's no authenticity behind the content itself. Like, you have to align it with being that magnetic, grab the attention headline, with also making sure that you're not leading your users down the wrong path, because if you do that, they're not going to want to come back. They're not going to trust you.
Yeah, well, that's the literal definition of clickbait, is one title that is saying something and your content or your video, whatever it is, does not actually follow up on that. So Yagna, I'll unmute you now because you got some background noise there, but you want to walk us through that?
Sure. So what mostly I have seen in my expertise is that, like, most of the bloggers, they go on Pinterest, they find out some headlines, and they just copy paste that, and they don't really play around with actually what their topic is, which is the mistake they kind of are doing. And so it should be related to your niche and your industry, and that is why you have to make your headline unique for your niche, and you have to be specific as well. That is what I think.
Okay, totally. Let's see. I'm just playing around with different formats here if you're watching.
I know, this is really fancy, by the way.
All right, and just as a side note to all of that is there are several headline optimization tools out there that you can use to help give you different ones. One of our favorites is actually conversion.ai, which has now been rebranded to jarvis.ai. In general, just a few tools that you will want to use while you're considering your entire I think you could just open up Notepad or whatever editor you want, but given the fact that we live in 2021, tools like Grammarly, There's Ink for SEO, the Ink editor, which is a really good tool as well. It'll look up in real time and help you optimize. And the third one that I really love is Jarvis.ai, which has everything from content headline optimizers to content rewriting. There's this cool feature called Tell Me Like I'm 5, which will reduce the reading level of your content. So if you tend to kind of write up, you want to actually write down to like a grade 3 to grade 4 level, which is very typical. So lots of really good tools that you can use to help you achieve these goals that we're talking about. So we're not trying to make this seem like it's we're not being vague here. Okay. So Yagna, maybe you can walk us through a good versus a bad headline.
Yeah, so it is important to remember that your headlines are being read by humans on the internet and not robots. So this is why you have to make sure that you are giving them something. For example, like here's one simple way to improve your life. That example does not give any specific information. However, if you like give out some information of what you are actually talking about, like why you need 8 hours of sleep or why you need these 5 tools in your digital marketing in work, that is going to give something to the audience. And if you can skillfully tap into the right emotions at the right time, your headlines, then you have basically got the magnetic headline that you were looking for.
Totally. I think one of the other things that's really important, like we talked about, like headlines, and these headlines are incredibly important, is to try lots of variations of them. As well, if you're looking on your blog, if you're using Elementor, I believe Wix does have a series of tools like this too, regardless of the tools, is you can use A/B testing in headlines to see what kind of performance you're getting out of your content, and try to be as specific with a value prop as possible. Like one of the things we talk about with social video is you need that hook within 3 to 4 seconds, right? You got to get that attention because of the way that the feeds work and the way that individuals work. Now with content, you've got a little bit more, especially if someone's searching because they have a high level of intent. But if you can show that value, and I know we're talking about, 180 characters over here, but that headline can make or break your click-through rate, the number of searches you get, and how well you perform overall. Cool. All right, next up, we've got the big bad boy SEO research. So before we dive into this a little bit deeper, I do want to talk about this very, very quickly, which is don't look at it as SEO research. Don't look at it as you're trying to optimize for SEO, which is this thing that doesn't exist. We've talked about this. We've actually had lives on it specifically and a series of rants about it. SEO is a conduit, right? So when you're doing SEO research, you're actually researching the psychology of the person sitting at the other end of the search engine from a content perspective, right? So understanding their motivations, their fears, their desires, what positive outcome they want to get from where they are today. These tools enable you to understand that. And I'll kick it over to Stacy and Yagna to talk about the specific tools, but from a higher strategic level, when you look at it as SEO content, or if you look at it as SEO research, it's human psychology research, right? Mm-hmm. You're researching a person. And I think a lot of people get lost in this where they say, well, we've got the content on our website, but we need some SEO content. So you're saying the content that is of the highest value to your potential customers, because that's what you're saying, right? And a lot of people do not realize that. And that is, if you don't make that subtle nuance and that subtle distinction about the fact that the SEO is just the pipeline from a user to you and making you findable and reachable, then you're missing the point of SEO from a content perspective completely. There we go. And I will now defer to my colleagues on this.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think a lot of people get mixed up with the fact that SEO is not an afterthought, like what you're saying. Mm-hmm. It's something that you have to do right when you get those customer journeys and the customer personas done. Now you have to start thinking about intent and what are those search terms going to be, and then doing the research so that you can properly craft content for your niche that will perform well and make you more searchable.
All right. Pregnant pause there. Oops.
Yeah, I'm, my mic
Sorry.
stopped working for a second there, so I was like, oh.
No, that's okay. So let's talk a little bit about a few of the tools that you can use. One of the things I will say, just in addition, before we start talking about this, is the fact that you want to start 9 times out of 10. I mean, unless you're working on a very large blog, a very large site, a way to start is with question-based searches. It's the best way to truly start to understand. So if I'm looking for how to trade stocks or how to do investments, right? One of the most competitive areas, starting with the question-based searches will give you exactly what the intent is, where people are getting hung up when they start to progress through from beginner to intermediate to advanced. Start at the question-based searches, and I'll kick it over. Stacey, I know you use Answer the Public all the time, and some other tools there.
Yeah, so some great tools that we use almost daily here is Answer the Public, where you can actually just type in your question or even your subject. So maybe it's investing, like we were talking about, and it will actually bring up a really cool graphic. I think we've shown it in past shows where it will show you the popularity or how many people have actually been searching for said term. And it'll give you, it'll start with all the the 5 W's, who, why, what, when, and how. And it will say everything from someone's looking for why I should be investing to how do I get started to investing. And it will categorize them by popularity. Another one we use is SEMrush, keyword magic tool especially. It will really help us. You can sort by country. You can also understand the difference between keyword strings and question-based searches. And you can sort them by keyword difficulty, which is really important as well, because it helps you understand how competitive that term is going to be. And is there an offset that you can use that's kind of middle of the road and not as competitive, but will still garner the same traffic based on the same intent or question that someone is asking.
For sure. Then we've got keywordtool.io. Oh, geez. Sorry, Yagna. I had you muted.
No worries.
You just got some background. You had some background noise. I didn't mean to mute you for that long.
That is okay. I don't even know what noise you are hearing, but it's okay. Yeah, so what I was saying is these tools are really helpful, and you can get the basic keywords that you need to get started for your blog, and you can search for seed keywords or broad topic ideas, and these tools will really helpful. I use SEMrush for all my blog research, and it has been really helpful for me. And there are a number of ways to do keyword research to discover core keywords for your project.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our SEMrush account is the equivalent of a college tuition education. I'm not even joking. So congrats to SEMrush for a smart business model, but it is something that we do use on the regular. You can get a free account. The other cool thing, keywordtool.io is a little bit more niche, but if you are on Amazon, they have an excellent Amazon search keyword tool, which obviously Amazon has its very own kind of thing, especially if you're looking at marrying your product with your blog content. It's a really strong one. Lastly, the keyword planner from Google, which came up. If you're on a budget and you're looking, Answer the Public has a free version. You're just limited on the number of searches. SEMrush has a free version, at least to some greater or lesser degree, but pretty reasonable ones. For free, Google Keyword Planner. And look, you can always really use Google and start to think about that in a less of a tooling perspective and more of a searching perspective. So you don't have to have a massive budget to do this stuff. I think that's important because this stuff gets expensive.
Yeah. You can still, get the information that you require without the college tuition.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, Yagna, I think it's your mic that when you stop talking, it actually picks up the background. And then when you start talking, it kicks in. I think, all these tools have had recently, I don't know if you guys have noticed, it's really messed up my Mac system. Everybody's introducing like echo cancellation and noise reduction, and like Skype has it, Slack has it now, Zoom has so it messes with your audio system. So I don't know, that might be what was happening there.
You can keep me muted.
No, it's okay. You're actually you're good now. So I have no idea what's going on. All right. So let's talk about the next part is, again, creating content is not just about barfing out a bunch of words into a blog post, right? You see that a lot, actually. You'll see a lot of, especially lower quality content that tends to be outsourced at very, very cheap prices. It does not actually tell a captivating story. And this is a big problem for a lot of people because they'll say, well, we got this great article. But number one, if there's 10.2 million other articles that are very similar to yours, you have got no content, what's called a content moat, right? What makes your content uniquely different than the 10.5 million or whatever the number is, people talking about that same topic? And that's I mean, there's millions and millions, typically depending on the content that you're talking about, right? So you need to understand storytelling, captivating copy, leading people from a beginning to a middle to an end. And content moats are something that's Kevin Indig, who is now, I believe he's the director of search at Shopify, pretty well-known SEO. I'm not sure if he coined it, but he certainly uses it a lot. And a content moat is thinking of something like, if we were going to talk about how to use video to increase your leads and conversions, we would invite one of our friends, whether it's Tyler Lassard or Michael Litt or any other one of our friends from Vidyard, to come on for an exclusive interview where we'd ask them unique questions, get some insight, turn that into a copy on the post and maybe an audio clip. That's a content moat, right? That's something you've got that no one else has. And you want to really think about how you can create content moats when you're creating your content. So it's not just, hey, you should really have video in your B2B, lead gen, right? So that's one of the first things in terms of copy creation. Stace, you do a lot of this, like we said before, so.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. And another point that I would like to add is that people really don't like to read. So it's very important that when you're crafting your copy that you're not, it's not Shakespearean prose here. Like, it doesn't need to be very verbose in this long, blog post. What it needs to be is something of value, and make it scannable, make it easy to read, add different media pieces to break up the content a bit, whether it's like video or maybe a link to a podcast, because people learn and read and consume content in different ways. So if you just have it linear and it's just, 10 paragraphs of, probably good stuff, but it, like, people just, especially on mobile, that they don't want to sit there reading a novel. They want the information they're looking for. It has to be quick and to the point. Like you said, when you do a video, first 3 seconds, get to the hook or get to the point, make it catchy, grab their attention, because otherwise you're just going to become Snarfest 101 and bye.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think one of the other things to talk about in terms of how you create copy and blocking and writing copy is this is the biggest thing. God bless all the people that I know that come from a journalism background and a traditional writing background. But for the love of God, when you're reading something on a mobile device, do not write in long form, paragraph form. I know it's not like Oxford ready, but bullet points, numbered lists, fracture your paragraphs into sentences, get to the point, make it scannable, make it so that people can jump around and get to the points that they want. And a couple of other things too is that you can take I think this is an interesting thing because some people are like video people, right? Like, I tend towards video content, for example, right? Because I'm comfortable with it. It doesn't freak me out at all because I'm not scared of public speaking. But there are several other people that I know that are more inclined towards writing. That's just their medium of choice.
Yeah.
Some people are audio people, where they're fine until the camera turns on and then they turtle, right? And if you're a content creator, you're looking at creating content, I think one of the important things is find the media that is most suited to you. Don't try to become a writer if you're not comfortable with it, because you could just crack open a webcam, start talking to it offline, have that transcripted, get it edited, then there you go, right? So I think that's also a very important piece of that puzzle.
Yeah, it sounds more complicated than what it actually is. You just have to simplify it for yourself. So don't try to be everything to everyone. Pick what works best for you and then really dig deep into it.
Totally. Yagna, any other little tips in terms of creating that copy, how to structure it?
Yeah, sure. So what I basically do when I have to write a blog is like I create a rough draft, and then I try to edit it in the same draft only. Because what happens is like you create a draft and then you think, oh no, this is not a good one. I'll start from the scratch. But you don't know that there are a few good things that you have like in your rough draft. So I think the best recommendation is like don't just delete your rough draft. You can start working in that. And it also helps whenever you have this writer's block. I usually face it a lot, and it's really helpful because you have some idea, and you don't have to start entirely from scratch.
No, that's really great. I put the spotlight on you there. I'm not sure if anybody knows. It's just using different restream features here. Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really important is to understand that to be an effective writer online is very different than if you're a novelist or if you're writing a full-fledged book, right? There are systems and formats that you can use that you will become more efficient as you do them more frequently and more often. And you want to kind of lean into that. And even if you're not the one creating the content, we do this, or like content templates. If you were to hire a writer, right, wherever that might be, whether you hire them in-house or you go to a freelancer, whatever it might be, if you give them, the more specificity you give them, the better the content's going to come out to your expectations, right? If you say, hey, write me an article on cars, well, the writer's not going to have any direction. When you're the editor, right, you have to give them the content format, the content style, what type of voice you're thinking about, what are the top things you want to talk about specifically. Your content will always turn out better if you do it that way. Okay, cool. So we're way over, but I'm going to, we'll talk about content depth here real quick.
Okay.
We have kind of touched on it a little bit. But one of the things about content depth, and I'm not talking about URL depth, I'm talking about the depth of media on the page. Infographics, related videos, video clips, audio clips, slide shares. If you're talking about something, and this is a really fantastic way, if you are looking to bulk up your content, and also from a distribution perspective, which we're going to dive into next for a few minutes, since we're like way over, we might as well just go all in. Is by using other people's content and giving them attribution and then tweeting at them. I like to tweet at people when I do this because I do this all the time. Add somebody into one of your blog post roundups, whatever it might be. Use them as a reference. Tweet at them with a link to it. Say, hey, thanks, this is awesome. If you follow them already, DM them. 100% of the time, you're going to, as long as you've got good content, which we're assuming you do, 100% of the time, that person will be very thankful. In fact, just as a little bit of a tip, I have DM'd or tweeted at writers for very major publications, right? National, traditional online media. If you go look at the writers, quite typically those writers will have hundreds, sometimes hundreds. Like I've seen contributors to the New York Times, they have 800, 900, 2,000 followers. They're not huge as individuals, right? They're working for the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Verge or TechCrunch or whatever, if you hit them up personally, because typically they're freelancers, you will get a good response, and that person then becomes a contact of yours. And if you go back to the same people because they're good, you can really develop distribution relationships, which is super important.
Oh yeah, I've used that tactic more times than I can count. Especially when if you're crafting blog content, like let's say you're doing a roundup and you get a quote from 3 or 4 different, experts in that particular niche of that particular topic, and you get them to contribute one point, and then you put it all together, and then you reach out to them and say thank you very much, or you share the content with them back. They're going to then share it with their audience, and around and around and around we go. And now you've tripled or quadrupled your reach just by doing that one thing.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about distribution, because we've been talking a lot about content creation, but, and look, I know several very prominent, very, very successful content marketers. In fact, one of the misconceptions about content is like, we need to be like CNN, right? Like, we need to pump out 40 articles a day on every single topic. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but what I mean is that you could often, with higher quality content, lower frequency that fits into your niche, you can create better content and out-content your competition, right? And so to think about that and then focus on making that great content, right? I've seen people that have been very successful with 5 pieces of amazing content, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about distribution, because there's nothing more sad than, that YouTube video with 2 views.
Breaks my heart.
Yep. Sometimes our YouTube channel, which I'm working on now as a side thing, we'll get there. Anyways, that's just total transparency. We don't have the biggest YouTube channel quite yet, but, Mr. Beast, we're coming after you.
Yeah. Watch your back.
Do you know who Mr. Beast is, Stacey?
Yeah. You've introduced him to me several times.
Okay. I just remember the first time it was like, you were like, oh, I think it was.
Yeah, I was like, what? But now I know.
Yeah. All right. So, Yagna, I'll kick over infographics to you.
Sure, I can take that over. So, visual content makes up to 93% of the content, and this is why infographics is one of the best, or we can say like it is a really good distribution strategy when it comes to repurposing your blog into an infographic. However, there are some things that you need to take care of, like it's an infographic, so obviously you cannot add all your data into it. So you have to make sure that you write the key points from your article, and that you limit your text. It is crisp and clear, it is clutter free, and you have to also ensure that it is your infographic. So where are you distributing it? Like apart from all other social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram, there are other platforms as well which you can take advantage of, such as LinkedIn, Quora, Medium, Reddit. And this way, infographics is like, it's really good for users to like quickly digest your blog without going to the entire page or like 1,000 words.
Yeah, sorry. I kind of feel like we could do a whole live just on like 100 100 distribution strategies for content. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
So
Great.
actually, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Write
You
that
literally
Noting it
just-
down. I'm
just-
noting
Write
it
that
down.
Just rapid fire, like for 60 minutes, just go through
Next
every
week.
single one. Yeah. Hey, why not? We could definitely do something like that. I've also been talking to SEMrush about doing like just live SEMrush like how-tos. Anyhow, a couple of tips on infographics, since I've got us like, it's going to be like 7 o'clock, ladies. Sorry.
That's fine.
Some strategies for infographics. One, to Yagna's point, absolutely correct. Keep it clear, keep it concise, tell a story, right? Don't try to clutter it up too much. Second piece of advice for social is decompose your larger infographic into social infographics, and welcome people to white label some of your content as well, to give you just to give you some attribution a little bit, but there's a lot you can do. Infographics, I know, seem like they're like 2014 strategies, but they're actually not. And they can be used and reused over and over and over again. The next one, Stacey, you want to cover this one? You've done a ton of this.
Yeah.
Repurpose
So
these.
there's nothing I like better than actually taking a blog post that has like the top 5 or top 10 tips for something and creating that into a video. I think it's important when you're creating videos that you capture someone's attention within the first 3 seconds, because otherwise you've lost them. They're not going to want to go any further. But it's also very important to make sure that when you're making that content, that you're formatting it for mobile first, or think 9:16, which is like a TikTok or Instagram reel format, because those are the types of videos that are going to get the most amount of reach. Like the reach on TikTok and on Reels is unbelievable, and even on Shorts on YouTube. So I just love video for the fact that a lot of people, like I was saying earlier, they don't like to read. They don't like to consume the content bit by bit. They want to actually see it like a story, and a video gives you, even 15 seconds gives you that ability to create real emotion behind the message as well. Like it can make you feel happy, it can make you feel sad, or it can make you feel like, oh, I get it now. Like informative.
That reminds me of that. What's that TikTok song? I could be brown, I could be blue. For sure. No, that's a great point. I think one of the things in this one as well, there's a tip here to CTA, to end of your videos, to direct viewers to the original blog post. One of the strategies actually of late, especially TikTok, TikTok really smacks people around without people knowing about it.
That's true.
One of the things that TikTok will smack you around for is too many CTAs and too many asks to leave the platform. And this is both a TikTok tip, because I mean, hey, I've got 33 followers on my personal TikTok, so
I've got 93.
But one of the things that you can do is to actually keep them there, right? And certainly creating that video and leaving it there and doing it regularly will really help you. With using that medium to distribute that content, right? Be subtle. Don't have to be completely direct all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One little small point too is, guys, please be consistent when you're making your videos, because people get used to your format. They get used to the way you tell a story. That's what makes you unique. So if you create one type of TikTok and then you go way off kilter and you go the other direction, it can be kind of confusing for users. And that's what TikTok has brought to the video stage, so to speak. I follow certain accounts because I love the way they shoot the video, or the stories they tell, and the way they go about it. And that goes back to the authenticity we were talking about earlier, but consistency matters. Hi.
And I had you full screen for that one the whole time.
Wow.
Too. All right, so we are way over here, but Yagna, do you want to talk a little? This is a really good idea. I'll just preface this a little bit. If you put together a series of blog posts, and that's quite typical what we will do. I mean, we've done stuff over the years with a bridal guide for brides and a bridal guide, wedding guide for grooms, and like all sorts of multi-part long form. You could, in fact, sit there. Well, you could read it out and really talk to it and speak to it and expand on it in a podcast or an audio form.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Go ahead, Yagna.
Oh, no, please go ahead.
Okay, cool. I think what's interesting about podcasts is one of the things that attracts a lot of people to certain types of podcasts is when they have like, okay, so I'm a bit of a hippie, and I really love this like zero waste podcast. Okay. And it was like 50 things this woman does not buy anymore. And I sat through the whole 45 minutes listening to it, but it was a list, and you can break it down very much like you would with a video. And it was just her talking. So it doesn't need to be this massive production. It can just be as simple as, taking that countdown list or that information and making it into snackable chunks throughout the podcast, little segments. And it actually really is like a great way to kind of create that engaging content where people want to learn more and, kind of keep them on the edge of their seat. And yes, I am a hippie.
All right, Yagna, go ahead. And you
Yeah,
were going to say.
I was just going to say a fun fact that while researching about it, I found out that like New York Times explains that like automatic cars which are connected to internet are the major reason why podcast or audio files are booming right now. That's kind of cool.
It is. Look at you
Well,
with the
audio is
facts today.
it's, you know what? Yeah. And look, podcasts are just non-terrestrial radio, really, is what it's turning into, or has turned into. And goodness knows that everybody's got a podcast these days. But the other part of this is that there are tools out there, and we talk about accessibility. It's important to make it accessible. There are several tools that you can actually install on your site that will automatically read the blog content for that post, so that anybody with accessibility and reading and visual issues will be able to just hit play and listen to the content of your blog post. That's one of those page depth things that's both great for the user, and like I said, regardless, I know that the team, since we've gone virtual, a lot of times when people are doing some maybe lighter work, we'll listen to podcasts in the background as if it were like a radio show, right? And I think that's something that you wanna craft your content for the use of your end consumer, right? Don't assume anything about what they're going to be doing or how they're going to be consuming it. Like, you don't know if they're on a subway in New York City or if they're driving in a car on a commute from Waterloo to Toronto, or if they walk and they're in downtown Toronto. Like, you don't know that. So in order to distribute properly, you've really got to think from their perspective and give as many of those possible options as you possibly can. Cool. Wow, we're just destroying it today. But we're on the last one pretty much here. And again, we could do a whole thing simply on nothing more than optimizing and monitoring. But one of the things to do is certainly, obviously, with your analytics platform of choice, quite typically it's Google Analytics. Monitor your growth over time. Watch that go. Water it like it's a flower. Don't just plant the plant and let it die. And then, go, well, that might be more like me. Don't buy a plant and then let it die, then go out and buy another one because you killed that one, right? See the little plant behind Stacy right there? Water it. It'll grow, right? And I think you need to treat your content like that. Keep it evergreen. Go back and look at the last year of content on your site. Find the top pieces of content. Optimize that content, refresh it, update it, like keep that stuff cycling through, right? Don't just try to create new all the time. Yagna, did you have anything to add on that in terms of optimization? Any tips?
I think you covered the most of it, but it depends on like paying attention to your analytics, and that is what will help you understand what is working for you in terms of not only keywords but everything, like whether this particular niche that you have chosen is working for you or not, and how you can understand how to increase traffic and make sure that all your readers and new readers come back to the page.
Totally. Just one last thing, since I'm knocked us off every kind of schedule we've had today. Always look at the referring domains for your traffic sources that exclude like organic search. Just as an example, I've got a site called 5 Minute Life. It's all about keto tips, that kind of thing. For the longest period of time, we got 3 of the recipes in there got added to roundups on very major sites. We're driving thousands of new user sessions, like 8,000 9,000 new user sessions a month. Then go to that blog post, reach out to the author, talk to them, thank them, and develop that relationship, because there are copacetic sites out there that can help drive you lots of referrals. Not only good for search, it's great for the traffic that will come through to you as well. Oh, we did it. All right, everybody. Well, that was a little bit longer than normal, but, it was a deep subject, so Hopefully we did it justice. And who knows, maybe we'll start to, we'll look at doing, 100 content distribution tactics and how to do it so we can dig into the nitty gritty of all of that.
And that will be a 2-hour show.
Yep.
Eventually it'll be like Joe Rogan. We'll break out the bongs and the whiskey and it'll be 3.5 hours long.
Well, it'll be an upgrade to my mint tea.
Oh, it's mint. I was hoping it was your turmeric thing that you do.
No.
Have you heard about the health benefits of turmeric?
Yes.
It's real. It's a wonder. Yeah. It's a wonder spice. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Yagna, thank you so much. I know you put a lot of hard work into this week's topic, so much appreciated. And I'm sure that people got a lot of good stuff to take away. Everybody, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week on Live at the Hive, Digital Marketing from the Trenches, episode 202. Same B time, same B channel. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and love and things and share and add us to your collections, whatever it might be. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Peace.